Hello and welcome to this infrastructure domain session as part of your buildingSMART International Summit in Marrakesh 2024. Thank you for joining us today. My name is John Proctor and I am your moderator. Details of the session are on the screen. We will be hearing a presentation on geotechnical issues from Victor Martinez Ibanez, and I will pass to David, who will introduce him and that session shortly. We also have Stefan Joud with us in the room from the IFC Tunnel Project, who will be helping with the discussion and the questions and answers. This session is scheduled to last 60 to 90 minutes, and we have time for questions at the end. Session is being recorded and will be made available in the replay section of the event as soon as possible. Before I hand over to David, I'd like to remind you that this is a hybrid session. If you're online, your microphones will remain muted for the duration. If you wish to make a comment or ask a question, please use the comments box and I will prompt you to do so. For the attendees here in the room, please keep background noise to a minimum, but if you wish to make a comment or ask a question, that would be most welcome. And we invite you to do so by raising your hand, and we have microphones. Also, I'd like to bring to your attention the information on the screen now. buildingSMART is committed to ensuring that participation in the development of standards is unrestricted, and the process for their adoption is transparent, and standards that are developed do not favour any particular provider, but are open, non-binding and accessible to all. Please take note of our antitrust code of conduct. With that, I'm going to pass to David.
Thank you, John. Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. My name is David Delgado Vendrell. I'm the technical coordinator of buildingSMART Spain. And well, I'm honored to introduce our speaker, Dr. Victor Martinez Ibanez, who will be joining us through this online live connection. Dr. Martinez holds a Master of Science in Civil Engineering and another in Geological Engineering. And with over 20 years of experience in civil engineering consultancy, he has coordinated numerous transport infrastructure projects and has been leading BIM implementations. In 2015, Dr. Martinez has been a dedicated lecturer in the Department of the Geotechnical Engineering and at the Polytechnical University of Valencia, our last summit venue, where he teaches geotechnics and BIM. His research on rock and soil mechanics, landslide risk management, and tunnel safety, as well as integrating geological and geotechnical information into BIM workflows. He is also an active member of several organizations, including the International Tunneling Association, the International Society for Soil Mechanics and Geotechnical Engineering, and the board of the International Society for Rock Mechanics in Spain as well, and also the research and training committee in our beloved chapter, buildingSMART Spain. So today we'll discuss Open BIM and geotechnics. This exploration is crucial because geotechnical engineering is not fully yet integrated into the BIM methodology, despite Open BIM being mandatory for infrastructure management by several public administrations in Spain. The philosophy of freely choosing technological solutions within the BIM context, and additionally, as a professor of both BIM and geotechnics, he has always aspired to connect these two disciplines. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Victor Martinez. I pass it to him.
Yep, that's great. Thanks, David. Just to let you know, Victor, I've changed the view in the room here. We can actually see you on screen now. Welcome. Please go ahead with your presentation.
Thank you, David. Thank you, John. Well, before I start, I would like to thank you all for giving us a few minutes. It is an honor for me to present our ideas in front of you. I'm sorry I can be there in person because here in UPB, we are at the beginning of the course and completely dedicated to teaching classes and other academical tasks. Well, this is the the index, I have divided my presentation into four main parts. Please notice that in total I will talk for about 15-20 minutes. Please move to the next slide, please. Well, I will not insist on this point since David already presented me. We can move to the next slide. Only to insist on the interest of UPB and the research groups in the School of Civil Engineering in deepening the integration of the geotechnical discipline in BIM, having IFC as a driving vehicle for this purpose. Please move to the next. Okay. So let's move to this section. Well, there is a need to advance in the integration of geotechnics in the BIM methodology. This is not new for anybody in this room. Please allow me a brief introduction to the Spanish context, which motivated our interest in accelerating the integration of geotechnical issues in BIM. In Spain, BIM requirements have been included in contracts since about 2017, mainly through regional administrations and public companies dedicated to rail, ports, airports. Since April this year, a new global plan started affecting the entire national infrastructure administration. This aspires to be a real revolution in the infrastructure sector and aims to achieve a generalized incorporation of BIM in Spain. There is a QR code if you want some details about this plan. Move to the next slide, please. Well, a timetable is proposed for a progressive increase in the BIM maturity level of all the stakeholders, which would peak in 2030. This is the table that it's included in this BIM plan that I referred in the previous slide. Well, it would affect contracts with budgets that are not excessively high in our sector, in the sector of infrastructures. So we expect a high penetration of these requirements in the industry. Next slide, please. Move to the next slide. Okay, thank you, John. Well, as an important detail, the Spanish BIM plan itself indicates the obligation to use open standards, and the IFC is explicitly mentioned. Move to the next slide, please. Thank you. Well, this timetable for the implementation of this plan is causing concern in the infrastructure sector. And for this reason, seminars, conferences are being promoted in different subsectors of the possibilities of adopting BIM in a generalized way and with a high level of maturity. I myself collaborated with the Spanish chapter of the International Society of Rock Mechanics in the organization of one of them in May this year, where we discussed the incorporation of BIM in tunneling and underground works. Some of Spain's most important construction groups and consultancies explained the experience in the adoption of BIM in this kind of works, underground works, with interesting real examples in northern Spain and in Scandinavia. Next slide, please. Okay, thank you. Well, this conference was interesting because it allowed to gather the opinions of the speakers, and it was interesting to hear how they managed to meet the contractual BIM requirements at the cost of investing tremendous effort, especially due to the lack of specific tools and almost the not existence of interoperability which in many cases required the development of a specific application and imaginative workflows. It is important to note that some of the speakers were explicit in naming the IFC as a potential solution to solve these problems in the future. The headlines that would best capture the contractor's view and the consultant's view are in this slide. The first point is that the infrastructure management administrations impose several BIM requirements. However, there is a lack of public geological and geotechnical information sources, public sources, to be directly worked in BIM. Secondly, few commercial solutions are prepared to cover the entire geotechnical engineering workflow. I mean, starting from that public geotechnical sources that I already mentioned to provide the factual data, then that data to be worked in a geological modeling software to create the layers or the lithostratigraphy of the model. Then that interpreted geotechnical models to be imported in the modeling infrastructure BIM software. And finally, a final numerical or analytical verification through a geotechnical software. This workflow is still not completed. So there is a need for programming project-specific solutions to achieve the interoperability, and this is, as I said before, time and cost-consuming. The most widely implemented IFC is 2.3. That is not a solution for the interoperability of geotechnical objects and data. There are not objects and properties dedicated to this field or to this section of geotechnics. There is still a lack of experience with IFC 4.3 to assess the suitability of this format for the exchange of geotechnical information. On the other hand, the geotechnical objects and the property sets in IFC 4.3 do not meet the needs for a complete geotechnical design or cases of use. And of course, it is still too early to test the IFC tunnel because the software vendors do not yet offer this possibility. Please move to the next section. Well, from the previous contractors and consultants' perspective, we can state some evident fields to be explored. Well, in the past weeks, we had talks with contractors, consultancies, software vendors, Spanish national infrastructure owners, and research bodies. I mentioned some of them in the previous slides. And from our perspective, there are some gaps to be covered or that need to be improved. Well, the first of them is, there is a need for developing open and interoperable geological and geotechnical databases that are public and open to the BIM users. Secondly, to advance in the IFC-based interoperability, test the limitation of the IFC 4.3 and of course of the IFC tunnel when it is available for the common geotechnical uses. Completing the scheme for as many use cases as possible, and collaborate with contractors, consultancy, and software vendors in the development, testing of IFC-based solutions. We have received interest from different actors to start working in these fields from now. So we started working with some agents. I will give you some cases later. And we operate or we work under the context of the Spanish National Research System, that it's the main founding source for our research. to give let me introduce some details in the gaps in these fields that I previously presented. Well, as I told before, since the public administration promotes the use, more than promotes, it's obligatory, is mandatory, the use of BIM and open standards. These administrations should provide geological and geotechnical databases of factual data that can be exported in open access formats, such for, of course, in IFC. Kind of public databases already exist for downloading geotechnical and geotechnical data and maps, but they are not prepared in BIM-based open formats. Some examples here in our area are the Valencia Regional Administration and the City Council, where our university, UPV, helped in developing such databases. But we still did not started this option to export this data into a BIM-based open format. Well, our intention is to contribute to the development of this functionality, so the factual information can be incorporated into visualization or geological modeling programs. Now we are working together with a seaport authority of Valencia to achieve this goal. This is a very recent project that we are starting now with them, and it's a powerful project because, well, this Valencia port is a strong have a strong muscle in the Valencian economic and then the Spanish economical context, and they own lots of information of geotechnical factual data. Next, please. Well, we were in the previous slide. I mean, well, there's no problem. No problem. Move to the next slide, please. To the next, please. This is the one. Regarding to the last slide, we can even consider the downloading of geological interpreted models, not only the factual data. And we take as a model the government of the Netherlands, which already allows the interoperability under the Open Geospatial Consortium standard, the OGC IE3S. This is a very interesting development. There is a QR if you are interested in more detail of this implementation. Please move to the next slide, John. Thank you. Well, a different field to explore that I already mentioned is to test and advancing the IFC scheme to complete uses. Well, the advances in geotechnics proposed in the IFC tunnel extension are impressive, as we saw in the conference of yesterday, led by Stefan. We look forward to testing the full potential of this new release. We are very interested in that point. Well, in this sense, here in UPV, we are of course open and interested to collaborate with buildingSMART International in testing and completing the existing and developing standards. To this end, we count on Spanish contractors, engineering consultancies and software vendors who already shown the interest in improving the workflows in geotechnics. Please move to the next slide, John. Thank you very much. Well, finally, some companies have shown interest in advancing in the development of interoperable geotechnical models. Specific case is that of Istram. This is a road and railroad beam modeling that is very used in Spain and many other countries, mainly in Latin America. They find in the interoperability of the geotechnical information using BIM, they found an opportunity to automate the definition of earthworks from road and rail design, considering the geometry and properties of the geotechnical model imported in the IFC format. This workflow could be completed if the combined road or rail and geological models could be transferred into a geological stability testing software also using IFC. I put a random example here of Plaxis from Bentley. Well, yeah, thank you, John. This has been a handful of ideas for further collaboration of geotechnics in OpenBIM. We believe that any of these research fields should be worked together with buildingSMART, given the huge experience of the groups involved in, especially in the AFC tunnel. Thank you very much for your attention and for your time. And if there are any questions, I will be happy to answer.
Thank you, Victor. Very good. So we have Victor online with us. We have David and Sergio in the room with us. And we also have Stefan Joud from the IFC Tunnel Project. Are there any thoughts, questions, or comments that anyone would like to make? Do you want to kick us off, Stefan? Say a few words.
I was ready to run through the room.
I thought you were. I thought you were.
To give the person the mic. But first of all, Victor, nice meeting you, and a really good analysis of the whole thing. I would say, from the practical perspective that I'm trying to represent is, of course, there's still a lot of work to be done, not only by the academia, but rather by the industry, to get this whole train rolling. In my view, let's say the train is packed and is ready to roll, but we need to somehow push it, right? So my question, perhaps I just missed it. How many of the industry partners do you have in this endeavor?
How many, sorry?
So how many industry partners? How many? You've mentioned some companies that are also with you, the engineering companies. I might have missed that information. I'm not sure.
Well, the companies that showed interest in developing all these fields were shown in one of the slides.
Yeah, sorry.
Who participated in a meeting or in a conference here in Madrid, organized by the International Society of Rock Mechanics, the Spanish capital. They are open to work in these fields. We are factually working now with a software vendor that is we are just starting with them that is Istram, and in this field of interoperability, okay, trying to solve these geotechnical design workflows. And there is we are also working together with a Valencia Seaport Authority in the development of these open databases, of geotechnical databases that can be exported into open standard formats. These are the two works that are starting in collaboration with UPB. But as I told you, the contractors and the consultancies, main consultancies in Spain that participated in that congress, openly showed the interest in this kind of developments, and even they were who mentioned the IFC as a potential solution to solve the interoperability issues that now they face and that are costing time and money for them.
Yeah, it's the same thing I also get from, let's say, the German market. I'm not sure if if you have any connections to DAUP, I believe. I mean, it's at least the tunneling association within Germany, because they are also dealing a lot with geotechnics, and they're all saying we need to connect the geotechnics to the civil softwares and stuff like that. I know that they. So I was at a German fair last week, and a lot of the, let's say, civil engineering design software showed that they can now do geotechnic, or that they now at least have geotechnic models in them. Not that they can model them, but that you could at least somehow get the data in. So it was fun to see, at least for me, because I told them, well, great that you have the data, now put it in IFC. And they said, yeah, we first need to have an industry need if we want us to implement anything, but this project really showcases that there is an industry need. So hopefully software vendors will also get moving on that front.
We also see a lack of geotechnical, geological and geotechnical models developed in IFC formats to be tested. I mean, one of the discussions we had is how can we stress this kind of IFC models. But there is, as I told you, there is a lack in 2.3, in 2.3, also in 4.3. We are facing problems to locate fully developed geotechnical and geological models in this kind of formats.
Yeah, it's let's say baby steps, but perhaps if I may. If I may initiate a direct answer to that need, there is a participant here with us, Mr. Kazunori. I think he's just opening a model up. So yesterday he showed me something, and so this is going to be very impromptu right now, but I would invite him to join us here on stage with his computer, and we're going to share his screen. If that's okay with you, Kazunori. Yeah, there's also a question first, but while he gets ready, I think you might be interested in what he's going to show us.
Hello, so I'm Luis Ribeirinho from Portugal, and while we wait, it's maybe more like a hope message. I think even if things are not ready yet, we shouldn't avoid going through and doing stuff. For example, we had 2 years ago, I think, a project where we put our hands on working with this. We used Geo5. There was several problems, not only with the way it exported the surfaces, but also the survey. But you know, it was like a mess the way the properties were exported. But we quickly did a sort of Dynamo routine to arrange the property as, yeah, and so it's not a problem. It shouldn't stop us from moving forward.
I completely agree. So there's never a good time to wait. We should just be trying to do it, trying to roll out. I've never heard of a standard that was complete in its first run. The example that I usually bring is the ISO DIN A4 format. That, I mean, you have A5 in front of you, but the A4, the paper format, that's in its 5th version, and it's only a paper format. And we're talking much more complex stuff here. So I completely agree. Roll with it, make it happen. So I also agree, as Victor has said, IFC 2x3 is not the perfect solution. It's not sufficient, but you can at least get something done with it. So, you know, of course, roll with it. The problem, of course, at least now comes the academic in me. It's time consuming. Some work of that is really repetitive and stupid. So we, of course, strive for automation. We strive for better data. We strive for, you know, algorithms. to do fun stuff and let the algorithm do the stuff that's boring for us. So I completely agree there, though. Yes, of course you can data so that it fits.
From my point of view, we need even more energy and hands to test what already exists, even before proposing new developments, because there is still a lack of experience on using what has been already implemented, in my view.
Yeah, the problem is not the computer, but that person that sits in front of the computer. Yes, I'm one of those. So self-criticism applies. But I agree. There's a lot of stuff out there already. I think you're not yet ready, but we have another question. If you just can you.
Thank you for your informative presentation. I'm Ria Wada from Japan, and I'm a member of DC222 BIM and DT at the ISSMGE. And I'd like you to, could you tell me your opinion about LOD development, LOD level of development
Level.
on the geotechnical models?
Victor, did you get that question?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't understand the final question. My opinion about
if I rephrase the question, if I may.
There's some echo here. I don't know where
That's on us. Did you manage now the echo at least? Let's try again. No echo anymore. Okay, perfect. Sorry,
Yeah.
sorry, Victor. That was on us. Also to all the rest of the online participants. To try to recap the question, is there any level of development for the geotechnical models, right?
I think it is very difficult to define LOD of the technical models. So I'd like to know your opinion about it.
Well, that's true, but it concerns me even more of that the sets of properties of the geotechnical models. If we speak about the lithologies and the geotechnical information that is associated to these objects, the information, the way this information is distributed, is organized, is in my opinion the most important of this kind of objects, because this is the key for the interoperability between different softwares. Well, probably the level of development, the graphical part, it's important in the build geotechnical works. Well, this depends. The Spanish administrations, they declare the level of development that is needed on each phase of the life cycle of the infrastructure, but they only refer to these build parts. I mean, walls, foundations, bolts, grids, this kind of objects. But they do not refer to the geological part, to the existing ground, I mean. But I repeat that, in my opinion, in this field, the most important is, of course, to be accurate in the limits between the different geological units or geotechnical units, and especially in the data that is associated to these objects. I don't know if I answered your questions.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Victor. I believe in the meantime, we've now managed to get screen share up and running, online screen share up and running. And I'll pass the words to Kazunori.
Thank you.
Improvise.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Kaz from Oyo Corporation, Japan. Just quickly, the Oyo Corporation in Japan, we are geotechnical consulting firm. And we've been supporting and contributing to the tunnel project from the beginning. And from last year, I think, we've been participating in the deployment program. So we've been testing the IFC entities properties we developed in the tunnel project. And that's the one of the model we created to test those entities and properties. This is actually a real model, geological model of Tokyo. Now you can see some layers and also boreholes. Boreholes are from the actual borehole logs. I think more than 200 boreholes. They are colored based on the classification. And we also have some sections like this. This is the actual and I think usable ILC geotechnical model. We are thinking to explain this model in detail and also dissect that model in the InfraBIM next year. So please come to Finland to see the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Kazunori. It looks awesome. So if I understand correctly, what we see here is you have all the source data, so all the boreholes, all the observations, so to say, and then you have the cross sections and the whole 3D body model that is being guessed or consulted by you, as in what you think is the correct thing, right?
Well, not myself, but some geologists in our company, yes.
Some smart heads put together, and they gave you this data. So, I mean, I've been sort of part of the process in writing the IFC file, so I know that there's a lot of manual labor that went into this this whole file. I think I speak for all of the participants here. Can we get our hands on this? So should we wait until February till InfraBIM open, or are you publishing it beforehand?
Maybe after the conference.
Right. Okay. So we still have to wait a bit, but for all the participants, it is at least prototypically possible to have this IFC data. I think this is, so the viewer is not yours, right? The viewer is...
this is IFC viewer, yes.
There's the IFC viewer from RDF that can open IFC 4.4 files, apparently.
Right.
And do we have voxels in there, or is it body?
These are the solid models, but I also have voxel. It's a little bit difficult to see. 4.4.
Yeah, sorry. No, I was thinking, well, we are here, let's say the framework is infrastructure domain, but, well, I'm personally coming from the building domain, let's say, and geotechnical, of course, also applies. And this is a model that it could be a geotechnical city model, let's say, or any other region level, let's say. So because from the BIM authoring or not authoring perspective in building, there's a current misunderstanding even for some vendors that 4.3, because we launched it for like an extension for the infrastructure and so on, it does not apply for building, which is not exactly true. And then we are, of course, building these geotechnical layers on top of the latest version. So I think that we will have some kind of transition or time range in which, well, if I'm working in building and I want to access also all this data and have these test models or even models that are provided by the administration or whatever or whoever, we will need to this kind of hybrid federation between different version schemas unless we have some parsing into the previous versions of the schema. And of course, this is again this time-consuming stuff that we don't want to, right? Just some.
Completely agree. It's I mean, for me the keyword here is there should be MVDs that basically say if you want to do buildings with, then use this MVD, and you need to upgrade to 4.4 basically. So hopefully at some point, at least in my humble opinion, is everybody will be up to speed and everybody will be exchanging 4.3 files, 4.4 files, and not being obliged to exchange 2x3 files just because it's in some contract, right? And the way I see it is, there is, of course, academically speaking, it's always a possibility to take an ISE 4.4 file, dump it down to 2x3 and exchange it using 2x3, but it is a workaround. You're definitely going to lose information there, because you see voxels here. Voxels are not in 4.3 even. So even if you want to go from 4.4 to 4.3 for whatever reason, you have to calculate the voxels into something else. So you lose all that good information that it's a voxel. You might save it as a string somewhere, but that doesn't help the software vendor. Software vendor needs to be certain, okay, I'm reading voxels. I know that they're voxels. I can do voxels. So, I show them as voxels. And for that reason, I mean, it's definitely going to be a parallel world for a while. 2x3 is now almost 20 years old, and it's still 80% of data exchanges in the industry. But it works. So why change the running system? Even some people say, of course, but I completely agree there. We need to push.
Yeah, exactly. And maybe an easy way to give support to that push, it's also about, it's a matter of communication as well. I mean, because this was born within the infrastructure framework, but it's a cross topic, so somehow, I don't know, of course, building it's another, but it's also connected. So how do we I don't know, make this new baby alive out of the infrastructure as well, not as a because it's a part, right?
I think we have a comment here from Tina.
Yes, well, thanks. This is maybe difficult challenge sometimes, but there is definitely a cross-domain elements in the built environment. And the Geotechnical is, of course, a good example of those cross-domain elements. So my recommendation is, Richard was here, Richard Kelly, yesterday, and the governance is in BSI. So somehow I'm hoping in the future that we face some maybe governance body to look these cross-domain matters maybe more precisely, because in the infra domain yesterday there was a concern about the predefined property set for walls that kind of building domain has defined like 10 years ago or something, and then if we have a need as an infra domain to add some more predefined property sets types for walls, then they are in the building domain. So I think that this is universal challenge at the moment, and I hope that in near future the BSI governance maybe could take a responsibility of these type of questions.
Yeah, it's definitely needed to. So I think even the wall and stuff, but also the geotechnics. It's regarding the schema itself. It's in the shared layer, meaning that basically any domain can make use of it because it is cross-domain. Think what we're talking here, right? I mean, of course, if you do geotechnical analysis, then you're in a sort of geotechnical domain. But if you're just providing the data for others to use, like tunnels or roads or buildings, then it's data that you're not necessarily allowed to change, or you shouldn't. But that again is a thing of agreement between exchanges. And that's perhaps also a good segue to Victor. Victor is still with us? Hopefully. Because
yeah, Victor's with us. Hi, Victor.
yeah, perfect. So when dealing in this project of yours with all the industry members, with all the partners that you have you perhaps written an IDM of sorts, as in what are the exchanges that you want to be? So I've seen you're using use cases, but have you formalized those in a, let's say, use case management system or wherever else? Because that would be perhaps also a good basis for development of the whole things, given that you can then say, well, given this use case, but if you want to use 2x3, that's the workaround. But if you want to use 4.4, then use voxels, or whatever it is that covers that use case. But have you tried formalizing those things? Are you in the process of it?
Well, our analysis has the approach that we had is on the little fully developed geotechnical models that we have in IFC. That is a very short list of that. We are very used to see these models using the common building element proxies. Okay, this is the most common example that we see, and then when we see this structure in the geotechnical information, we directly quite discard these models, because we cannot use these examples to test the interpretability of anything, because it's like a disaster box. We cannot use that. And as I told you, we are in a lack of examples developed in more advanced versions of the IFC, including 4.3. We would be happy to work with that. We are now considering developing this kind of models by ourselves, simple models to just to test using different softwares. We are also trying to locate what is the most suitable geological modeling softwares that are able to export in modern versions of IFC to develop this kind of models.
So I'm happy to say that I think I saw leapfrog on your slides. I think there were even
this is the model that we have in mind right now.
Yeah, that the software vendor was also part of the deployment project, at least for a while. So they definitely had a look at 4.4, and I assume they are waiting for official endorsement by buildingSMART International that 4.4 is now there. Please use it, for them to then of course say, wow, this is cool, this is exactly what we need. Here, users, go at it.
We put our wish in this software.
Yeah, no, I wanted to because Stefan mentioned the MBD, and I don't know if is only MBD the way to now to if we want to. Do we want a fast implementation of all this, or we want to go through all the not so fast in terms of software implementation? I mean, her question about the level of detail, development, definition, whatever, sometimes focus on the geometrical side of things, So I'm not an expert on geotechnics here, so sorry, but should be an extension of the infrastructure, or let's say the built objects MBDs, or should it be a special MVD for the geotechnical model software. This is one doubt that I have. Another one is, well, regardless, the MVD way of doing things, let's say, in terms of interoperability, and coming back to Victor's main concern, which is the, let's say, the information, the data enrichment of those objects is BSDD, you know, maybe it's not the exact same, of course. Another workaround to bring this here in a faster way.
Victor, do you want to take it? Should I take it? It's a
well, Stefan, I'm not sure. I mean, we always rely in a new development of the IFC to provide these objects and data sets, but I prefer to listen to your perspective, as you are very inside the development of IFC tunnel, and this is very interesting question about that David.
I completely agree that the question is a completely correct question, and there's no simple answer to it. It's really an engineering discussion to be had about exactly this issue. Is is it enough to just push the tunnel extension into the BSDD and apply it to 2x3 and have everything solved? I'm not sure it really covers all the uses that you want to cover, right? That's also comes back to my previous question. Do you have a clearly formalized IDM? Because then we could just go through the list. Yes, yes, no, no, yes, yes. If everything's yes, BSD is fine. Or if something's missing, can we live with it? The way I see it is, of course, MVD, I believe, is the most complete solution currently to address this problem of, can we have this implemented fast? Because, for example, Leapfrog, if I take the software, right, they're going to come and ask, how much of IFC do I have to implement to support geotechnical use cases? And the correct answer would be, here in VD that explicitly defines what's the frame, implement out of the 900 entities, implement 200 and you're done. And then, because without it, basically Leapfrog would need to implement 900 entities if it wants to correctly claim we support IFC.
And Stefan, could it be an IDS rather than an MVD? Because most projects are creating IDSs, as I'm sure you know, rather than MVDs today.
That is correct. Yeah, I think it's even less far-reaching. So yes, IDS, in the same way as it's a BSD, I see it more as a workaround for current state of the art, because IDS already presumes that you have reference view implemented. Because you can, I could, with an IDS, require Leapfrog to export walls, but Leapfrog doesn't have walls, I assume. Correct me here. It's just an assumption that the geotechnical software doesn't know anything about walls. So an IDS, in a way, is just an add-on to something base level. About, for geotechnics, you need to have voxels implemented. I can't do that in IDS. I can't do that with BSDD. Or, you need to have these cross sections that Kazunori showed, right? You need to have boreholes with a correct representation, with observations. Do you have observations on there? Awesome, perfect. So different groupings and stuff like that. It's not that simple, but in order to really answer both of these questions, is it enough? Is it sufficient? We need to have a really clear formalized IDM. What's the use case? What data do you want to have exchange, right? And from there, I would even correct you here, Victor, proxies might be fine, right? If proxies have the correct name, then use proxies. That's also sufficient, depending on the use case. Sorry, but you have your mic here.
No. I don't want to, just because, well, it resonates a lot what you're saying, but I think that there are, in my opinion, there are two sides of the geotechnical, let's say, layer here, which are, of course, the schema, like yesterday with the tunnel, right? You have extended the schema to, of course, include a new layer there somehow. So there are classes, but there are properties, and properties. It's maybe one of these parts of that new layer that apply to those new classes, but also apply to existing ones. And here is where I see, so imagine that you have the reference view in IFC 4.0.2.1, you know, and then now we already have even plugins to connect to BSDD and so on. And then I have some underground objects in building domain again. And then I want to, because I have classified those objects as some that need some geotechnical, you know, layers here on top of another domain, you know. So as you said, there's not one probably solution, but we need to expand it to different use cases. And some of those use cases are totally related to the schema extension, let's say, but there are some others that we also need to extend the, not the previous, but the other, let's say, MBDs or, and I don't know if MBD then, again, it's the way, you know.
It really, I think only time will show here what will, let's say, bubble up as the correct or the best solution. But given my technical knowledge, I would say that MVD, I believe, answers the problem appropriately, and I don't see an alternative yet. What could be used here for such exchanges? So, you know, where can I say I want to have boreholes that are colored? I really like the coloring. Awesome.
Stefan.
Yes.
Can I ask you for a specific case of use that it's very directly related to the IFC tunnel? And I'm sorry because I know I'm the main speaker, but I'm asking to you again and again. I'm sorry for that. But
no worries there, of course.
It's well, my question is about one of the most widely used tools to define the lining in tunnels are the rock mass classifications. I don't know if this makes you to ring a bell. It's the RMR from Wieniawski, the Q from Barton. Well, are numerical values that we used to design the lining of tunnels if we have to put bolts, grouting, whatever. Okay, and this classification, these numbers are related to the visible excavation surface, to the surface of the excavation we are performing. How that data that is very important, very used, it can be implemented in the IFC tunnel. Maybe it's a very specific question. I don't know, but these are the kind of concerns that we have here in the geotechnical area of
yes.
the university.
It's a great question, yes, about the excavation phase and how you classify whatever colors and materials you see on that excavation phase before you go blasting, right? So I think I mean it's a very technical question, and
yes.
I
do what you can. I'm not expecting you for a precision.
Yes. Let's put it this way. Politically speaking, I should have said I'll follow up on that, but I'll still try to answer it. Just again, also because I really like the discussion currently in the room. So I think there's an IFC excavation class introduced by IFC Tunnel. And I would assign that class a surface geometry. Mm-hmm. And then I would basically, first I would, let me correct myself, I would aggregate that excavation in multiple excavations that are then individual surfaces that with the aggregation build up the whole surface, and then assign each of those sons, each of those children, the classification of what material was there. So you could even assign material and then assign classification to that material. But I'm already describing quite a complex graph now in IFC, so I would definitely need to draw it and then have another critical view on this. But have a look into the documentation on the IFC excavation class.
I will do so.
And see if that fits what you've described. There's also another comment, but that's, for example, how I would go about it. And this is something that you can very well define with usages, with concept templates of an MVD, how to do exactly these connections, because this is what you would give to Leapfrog and say, this is how you implement it, please. And this is how everybody will expect it. And this is how viewers will then react to it. So, Tina.
Yeah, I actually happen to be a geotechnical expert and civil engineer, but kind of, I think this was the kind of conversation when we had already when we started IFC road project, because you have cuts and fills in normal projects, and then when we were defining the cuts in the road section, so same type of conversation was back then. How to do it technically with IFC, that's I leave to someone else, but kind of this domain expert part has been thinking through at least multiple times during the kind of evolved period of IFC extension for infra. And then I'm thinking here now that I like that maybe this use cases, IDM or IDS even based on the use cases should be the starting point, because like Stefan said, it's really hard otherwise to tick the boxes that, okay, these use cases we have been covered with the IFC, and then it's the question what comes maybe afterwards is that what are the use cases we even should cover it with IFC, because in many cases, of course, in geotechnics, there is a lot of different type of calculation software as well. So you need specific type of information from the models, maybe the geometrical part, to be added on to those different type of geotechnical calculation softwares, and then try to find those minimum requirements of the data transfer needed in order to fulfill the needs for the specific use case.
Well, maybe this data, this required data is the way this data is distributed, and the nature of this data is that one that is needed for the next software in the geotechnical analysis. I mean, the geotechnical software packages are prepared to analyze some geotechnical problems. I mean, in my opinion, the data that needs to be transferred from the geological geotechnical model to the next step, that is the geotechnical analysis, has to be oriented in that way. I mean, for example, this particular case that I put in the rock mass classifications, it's a value that is mostly used not only in the lining of tunnels, but also in the road domain and in the rail domain to determine how to contain the cuttings. I mean, the slopes in the cuttings are also bolted and grounded, and grids are disposed there. So this is a particular parameter that is very commonly used in geotechnics. So these kind of parameters had to be very well represented, in my opinion, in the IFC, in order to preserve the complete workflow.
I completely agree. And if you just put this into text, as in, let's say, IDM, you have it already. Because you've basically just now described the requirement, just now described the need. I'm also very happy to hear that, let's say, both the authoring software as well as the receiving software both know about this information, so they basically should be able to write it. And the only catch, or the only thing we need to agree upon as we users and the software developers, is where to put it in IFC.
Yeah.
And if you give this information to the authoring software, he's going to write it there. If you give this information to the reading software, he's going to expect it there. And voila, basically. I mean, it sounds simple. Of course, it needs time to get everything rolling. But what you've just described, it's a perfect example of, hey, I need this information for this specific use case, for this specific exchange. I can foresee these types of, let's say, different scenarios or different values and run with it. So, perfect. I'm happy to hear it.
Thank you.
You already basically have it. It's just the formalization, I believe, that we can work and improve upon. Any hands from the audience regarding this topic?
Yeah, it's been a great conversation. Thanks to Victor and Stefan Kazunori to showing us the information. Are there any more comments, questions, or thoughts?
Is there anything online in the chat?
We have no comments online at the moment.
Okay.
If anyone online wishes to make a comment or raise a question, please do so. Sounds like we want to do a bit more documentation is one of the things that everyone's agreeing to in the room. I think producing some more detailed use cases, describing some of that and the exchanges associated with those use cases in IDMs.
Correct.
And then ultimately, well, what's the solution and how do we use IFC tunnel entities in the models, which of course Oyo Corporation has shown us and are already doing, is kind of what we need and want.
It is feasible, yeah. And the analogy I like to use right now is, so IFC is just the vocabulary, right? IFC is just the Oxford Dictionary. You can write whatever you want with an Oxford Dictionary. You can write novels, you can write sonnets, you can write Shakespearean dramas, you can write whatever you want. It depends on your use case. And now we want to be defining what is a sonnet so that we can then start writing sonnets, basically, or whatever romantic novels you are interested in. So this is the the frame of, we have the vocabulary, we kind of know what we want to read, we kind of know what we want to be exchanging. Now we just need to formalize that in a way that, in my view, so I'm also software vendor on the side, I wish to have the bare minimum because that makes my implementation very simple. So what are the entities, and as little as possible, that's great, because that means I can be fast in my implementation and I don't have much that I need to maintain as well. On the other hand side, writing sonnets in 4.3, in 4.4, and 2x3, that has changed for geotechnics at least, not for buildings. So we need to formalize that somehow and publish it. There's documentation coming up. Perfect. I'll also use this minute to thank Oyo Corporation for the great example. Oh, there it is. PSET geo observation borehole geolog interval. That's a exact. Can you zoom in a bit to make it a bit bigger for the participants here in the room? Properties. Yeah. Oh yeah. So this is an example of, let's say, vocabulary. So you're allowed to use this in your exchanges, and it is at least in a way standardized vocabulary for observation of a borehole, of an interval for the geologs. And this is what the domain experts have agreed upon, that's the thing that are interested in. You might only need a few of those for your use case. You might need all of them. You might need none of them. That's where you need to then define, okay, what's the use case, right? You want to say something? Sorry. And basically, giving this to software vendor, he knows what's to do. That's a simple task. That's an entry-level job, basically. And the important thing is, of course, this: the descriptions, This is something that took us quite some time to agree upon internationally, but now they're there. And of course, there's an asterisk to it. Please comment if you find issues. Nothing's perfect. So, you know, if you have all these exchanges defined, if you have all this information, I mean, we're gonna reject if you want to have Spanish words in there, but you know, we will find English words for it, and expand if there's something missing, of course.
Stefan, despite this comment of this rock mass classification that I told you, I have to highlight that the improvement in this IFC tunnel is very visible. I mean, I see in the same screen, I'm seeing some parameters related to the rock, for example, the rock quality designation. This kind of parameters were not in the previous releases of the IFC, and it's a considerable improvement. This is something that is very clear.
I'm very happy to hear that. And let's say the cool thing about P-sets, you can use them in 2x3 without change. So you just need to require them somehow. And for that, for example, IDS is also sufficient, right?
Or we could put the P-sets in BSTD. Yeah, there are. One of the things to do is to sort out the solutions to getting the information out to the industry, isn't it? That was part of what you were presenting yesterday in the conversation, and certainly that's been a common theme again today. So we need to do that for sure.
As long as a standard is not implemented, it's just a piece of paper.
Indeed.
So, you know.
Yeah. But you've shown us today, you know, real examples of the new IFC 4.4, IFC tunnel standard, and entities being used, which is fantastic.
And I'm very grateful to Oyo for that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kazunori.
I think I'm going to bring the session to an end. Yeah, we have no comments or questions online. I don't know if there's any final comments that anyone wants to make in the room before we close. No, I think we've had a good conversation. Victor, is there any final comments, observations that you wish to make today?
Just to thank you, John, David, and especially to Stefan, because he cleared many of my concerns, and allowed me to have a more clear view of the potentiality of this standard. Thank you.
No, thank you, Victor. So thank you very much to Victor from buildingSMART Spain, and David and Sergio for setting this session up with Victor. Great to have Stefan with us as always. Thank you for that. And thank you to Oyo Corporation for your input as well. This has been the Infrastructure Domain Session 3, which is coming to an end. There will be refreshments in 10 minutes' time available upstairs. And other sessions will continue at 11 a.m. Not in this room, as it happens. We won't be back in this room till 1:30 after lunch. But in the room opposite or further down the corridor, you'll find other summit sessions. Thank you very much.